Welcome to this week's lecture on style and voice. How writers develop a distinctive way of telling a story. Let's begin.
Style is the distinctive way a writer uses language to communicate. The content of a piece tells us who, what, when, etc. Style helps the reader to experience it. For example, the content of this story is that a woman walked into a dark room and realized she wasn't alone. Depending on the style, the story can affect the reader in different ways. For example, if it's horror, she stepped inside, the floor creaked behind her. Or comedy, 3 steps in, I realized somebody was there and I was probably going to die wearing Crocs. Reflective, years later, I would remember the darkness more clearly than the person standing inside it. So you see, the same event, different choices, different experience. Last week, we learned that literary devices overlap and work together to create meaning. Style works the same way. A writer's style isn't one technique, it is the recognizable pattern created by many writing choices working together. Here are some of the key elements of style. Diction. This is the author's specific choice of words, ranging from formal to academic to simple and conversational. Syntax. This is how a writer arranges words, phrases, and clauses, including whether sentences are short and punchy or long and flowing. And literary devices. The use of literary devices, such as symbolism, imagery, figurative language, tone, and mood, is a stylistic choice. So you see, style is how a writer writes, not simply what they write about. Let's unpack diction. Diction refers to the specific words a writer chooses. They can be formal or informal, concrete or abstract, simple or sophisticated, or direct and figurative. The word choice affects how the narrator sounds and how we, the readers, experience the story. How would you describe the diction in each of these examples? A, my grandmother was angry with me. B, grandma was mad as all get out. C, my grandmother regarded me with the particular disappointment reserved for children who should have known better. I'll pause right here and let you figure it out. All right, here we go. Direct, informal, and formal. How'd you do? Syntax is the way words and phrases are arranged to create sentences. Writers don't always choose sentence structures because they're grammatically correct or grammatically necessary. Sometimes they choose them simply because of how they sound. Some examples of how writers use syntax are in sentence length, sentence structure, repetition, fragments, punctuation, sentence openings, and rhythm. Syntax can control pacing, tension, rhythm, and emphasis. Syntax choices, like sentence length, can change the reader's experience. Let's take a look at these 2 examples. The longer version, I heard something downstairs and wondered whether someone had entered the house, so I slowly got out of bed and walked towards the hallway. Versus the shorter, I heard something downstairs. I froze. Another sound. Someone was in the house. Syntax can control the speed and rhythm of a story, and these choices affect how we, the readers, experience it. Think about this. Between the two examples, what happened to the pacing? What happened to the tension? And which one feels more urgent? Pause here and think about that. Do you remember when I told you that I enjoyed teaching English, language arts, literature, etc., because it's like a bowl of spaghetti that all the different concepts touch one another and we come back to them over and over again? This is one of those moments. The use of literary devices, such as symbolism, imagery, figurative language, tone, and mood, is a stylistic choice. Let's focus on one, imagery, the language that appeals to the senses. Remember, writers don't describe everything. They choose what to describe, how much to describe, which details to emphasize, and what to leave out. So these choices become a part of the writer's style. Let's look at this example a bit more closely. So here are two examples using imagery. The kitchen smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Morning sunlight spilled across the table. Or, three dirty cups sat beside the sink. Something sticky had dried on the counter. The refrigerator hummed. What details did each writer choose? And what mood does each version create? Description doesn't just show us the setting, it shows us what the narrator notices, and it creates the mood, which helps the reader know what to feel. When analyzing style, you want to look for patterns. Ask yourself, what does this writer do repeatedly? What kinds of sentences do I notice? What details matter? How does the narrator speak to me? And what overall personality emerges? That word personality is key because it leads us directly into the next portion of this lecture, voice. Voice is the personality or presence we hear in the writing. It could be funny, innocent, uncertain, serious, bitter, intimate, reflective, warm, detached, sarcastic, or confident, or many more things. Style and voice relate to one another, but they're not the same. Let me explain. Style is how the writer writes. Voice is who we seem to hear. Style is the writer's choices. Voice is the personality created by those choices. Style is how the writing is constructed. Voice is who we seem to hear. Style includes diction, syntax, imagery, dialogue, pacing, etc. Voice can be funny, reflective, sarcastic, intimate, innocent, etc. You might be thinking that voice sounds a lot like tone, and you'd be right. It's one of those spaghetti moments. Tone and voice are related, but they're not the same thing. Let me explain. So, voice is the writer or narrator's overall personality. Think, who do I seem to hear? And tone is the attitude that voice takes towards a particular subject or situation. Think, how do they feel right now? A writer's voice may remain recognizable while their tone changes. For example, you still sound like you when you're joking with your best friend, arguing with someone, giving a presentation, talking about something painful, or praying. Your tone changes depending on the situation, but there are still characteristics that make you sound like you. Point of view shapes voice. It determines who tells the story and what the reader is allowed to know. First person, I couldn't believe she said that to me. Third person limited, Maya couldn't believe she had said it. Third person omniscient, Maya couldn't believe she had said it. But across the room, Elena was already regretting the words. So who tells the story affects how the story sounds. Dialogue reveals voice too. It's not simply conversation. Writers make choices about what characters say, what they don't say, slang and dialect, sentence length, pauses, interruptions, repetition, humor, silence. And dialogue can reveal the personality, the background, the relationships, the conflict, and the emotion of a piece. Put what we learned together. Mama never whispered. Even her secrets arrived at full volume. Don't you tell nobody, she'd announce from the kitchen loud enough for 3 houses and the Lord himself to hear. That's how Mama loved you too, loudly, publicly, and whether you wanted it or not. What stylistic choices do you notice? How would you describe the narrator's voice? Pause here and think about it. If you need help, here is a simple style analysis formula. First, identify. Name the writing choice or choices. Then find evidence that points to an example or pattern. Explain what that choice does for the reader. And then reveal. Explain what it reveals about the style or voice. Here's a sentence frame for you. The author frequently uses blank and blank, which creates blank. This contributes to a blank style and a blank voice. Let's go back to the previous example. Mama never whispered. Even her secrets arrived at full volume. Let's identify. I see hyperbole and short sentence structure. Evidence. The narrator exaggerates the mother's loudness and uses brief, direct statements. The effect. The description makes the mother vivid and humorous. And this reveals a conversational style and an affectionate voice. So here is my full statement. The narrator uses hyperbole and short, direct sentences to humorously exaggerate her mother's personality. These choices contribute to a conversational style and an affectionate voice. Here's the final takeaway. Style is a writer's fingerprint. Many writers use metaphors, dialogue, imagery, short sentences, reflection, and humor, but they do not combine them in exactly the same way. The pattern of choices makes the style distinctive. The personality we hear through those choices becomes the writer's voice. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next class. I'm looking forward to seeing your own style and voice come through in your own narrative writing. See you next time. Bye-bye.